Throughout your life, you've been led to believe that money is the only type of wealth. In reality, your wealthy life may involve money, but it will be defined by everything else. That is the core message behind this excellent book, The 5 Types of Wealth by Sahil Bloom, which is a transformative guide to designing your dream life. It is a mammoth of a book. I have made lots and lots of highlights, taken lots of notes. I've taken a lot of stuff from this book that I'm applying to my own life. And that's why we are discussing this book in this episode of Book Club, the ongoing series where for the last 5 years, I have been distilling and discussing summaries and highlights from some of my favorite books.
But when I spoke to hundreds of much older people, like 80, 90-year-old people, and asked them about the things that they would tell to their younger self. What did they really think about? What were the things that were meaningful and impactful to them? And all of them across the board say the same things. They say time, they say purpose, they say people, and they say health. Very few of them talk about money. And yet, when you go back and you see how people are actually living during their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, it's all focused on that one thing.
So the 5 types of wealth are time wealth, social wealth, mental wealth, physical wealth, and finally financial wealth. And so in this video, for each of these different types of wealth, we're going to be talking about what it means to have that kind of wealth. And secondly, I'm going to share 1 or 2 key actionable principles from the book. You can see it's an enormous book. I've taken loads of stuff away from it, but I'm just going to share 1 or 2 actionable points. If you want to get the rest of it, you should totally read the book. It's very good, but let's just dive into it. The first type of wealth, time wealth. All right, so this is the Memento Mori calendar. Memento Mori is Latin for remember you will die. And each of the boxes on this calendar represents 1 week of your life. Now there are 80 rows of 52 weeks here, so this is the average 80-year-old life. And I am currently 30 and a half years old, and so this is what my Memento Mori calendar looks like. If you're in your 20s, this is roughly what your calendar might look like. If you're in your 30s, it looks something like this. If you're in your 40s, it looks something like this. And if you're in the roughly 5% of people who watch this channel who are in their 50s or above, then this is what your calendar might look like. And this sort of calendar is supposed to be a visual reminder of the fact that firstly, life is short. Secondly, time always moves forward. And thirdly, that therefore we should probably be a little bit more intentional about how we spend our time.
Time wealth is fundamentally the idea that your time is your most precious asset. This is something that people fail to recognize until it's too late. And the funny thing about time is you never think about it until the very end, when it is the only thing that you think about.
This brings a paradox to the surface, one I call the paradox of time. You are subconsciously aware of the immense value of your time, but you regularly and consciously take actions that disregard that value. In his On the Shortness of Life, Seneca wrote, "We are not given a short life, but we make it short. And we are not ill-supplied, but wasteful of it." You know how important your time is, yet you ignore its passage and engage in low-value activities that pull you away from the things that really matter. Now in the book, Sahil talks about 3 pillars of developing time wealth. The first pillar is awareness, where you have awareness of firstly the idea that time is very short and is always running out. And secondly, where you have awareness over how you're actually spending your time. Once you have that awareness, the next step is attention, which is your ability to direct your attention and focus to things that really matter and ignore everything else that doesn't. And then the third and final pillar is control, where you genuinely have control over how you spend your time. And when it comes to time wealth, a lot of us fixate on this idea of control, and we start saying things like, well, I can't control how I spend my time because I have a job, or because I have a family, or because this, that, and the other. But the point that Sahil makes in the book, which I very much agree with, is that control is the third pillar. We can all have more awareness of how we're spending our time and the finite nature of it, and we can all definitely improve our ability to pay attention to the things that matter. Like I suspect for most of us, if we look at our screen time on our phones, we're not really giving attention to the stuff that genuinely matters to us. If we genuinely had awareness that we were going to die and that time is our most valuable non-renewable resource, we probably wouldn't be spending our attention on the things that we currently are. And once you've got this awareness and you can direct your focus and attention in a sensible way, at that point you can work towards genuinely getting control of your own time. Now for each of these 5 different types of wealth, there are 5 questions each that help you figure out what is your own level of time wealth, social wealth, physical wealth, mental wealth, and financial wealth. So I'm going to read out the 5 questions for time wealth. And the idea is that for each of these questions, you're giving yourself a score from 0 to 4. So 0 is if you strongly disagree, 4 is if you strongly agree. So these are the 5 time wealth questions, and it might be worth pausing the video in a second and answering these questions for yourself if you would like. Question number 1. I have a deep awareness of the finite, impermanent nature of my time and its importance as my most precious asset. I have a clear understanding of the 2 to 3 most important priorities in my personal and professional lives. 3. I am able to consistently direct attention and focus to the important priorities I have identified. 4. I rarely feel too busy or scattered to spend time on the most important priorities. And 5, I am in control of my calendar and priorities. So feel free to pause the video at this point and answer these 5 questions for yourself. And if you feel like doing a little bit of mental maths, you can even add up your score out of 20. Now, the point of doing a quiz like this is not to make you feel bad or anything like that. It's literally to identify where you are. And then you can set a goal for, okay, in the next 12 months, I would like to increase my time wealth score, or whatever score it might be, to whatever points. Something Sahil recommends is that you also define an anti-goal, which is, on my way to increasing my time wealth score, I want to avoid doing the following. And then you figure out high leverage systems that you can implement into your life. And he's got like dozens in the book, but the idea is that you pick 1, 2, or 3 of them, you apply them to your life, and those will help you increase your time wealth score. But there's one that I've started applying to my own calendar right now, which is the appreciation of the 4 types of professional time. So when it comes to our professional lives, Sahil argues that there are 4 types of time. Type 1 is management, and management time is what most of us spend the majority of our professional time in. That's things like meetings and calls and presentations and processing emails and like team and people management. Then you've got type 2, which is creation time. And creation time is the second most common type of professional time. It's what most of us scramble to get done in the gaps between management time blocks. And typical activities of creation time include writing, coding, building, and preparing. Creation is where new progress is found. Thriving organizations have a focus on creation time, and thriving individuals as well, and ensure that management time doesn't infringe on it. Then we have type 3, which is consumption time. Consumption time is one of the 2 forgotten types of professional time. It's where new ideas for creation and growth are planted. Typical activities include reading, listening, and studying. And then we have type 4 time, which is ideation time. This is where new ideas for creation and growth are cultivated and grown. And typical activities include brainstorming, journaling, walking, or self-reflecting. Sahil writes that most of us have 0 time for stillness and thought in our day-to-day professional lives, so we make linear progress and miss out on the asymmetric opportunities that require creative, non-linear thinking. I completely agree. The idea is that you go through your calendar and you color code the blocks of time in each of these 4 different types of time. And then from that baseline, you can work towards a more optimized balance. So for example, tip number 1 here is to batch management time. Like ideally you want management time to be all in one go rather than scattered throughout the place, as it is for most of our professional lives. Secondly, you want to increase creation time, like try and actively make up blocks for creation time. First thing in the morning is often a good time to do that. And thirdly, and the thing that I'm personally working on, is to create space for consumption and ideation. Now, speaking of time wealth, one of my favorite new tools that I'm experimenting a lot with for scheduling my time intentionally is Reclaim.ai, who are very kindly sponsoring this video. Reclaim.ai is an AI-powered calendar. So instead of manually time blocking every single week on the calendar, Reclaim has a bunch of cool features that automatically help build out your ideal week without spending more time in Google Calendar. It also automatically reschedules stuff if you have any calendar conflicts, which means you can stay flexible while hopefully making sure you never actually drop the ball. Now, there are 3 features in particular that I've been playing a lot with recently. Firstly is the habits feature. So these are daily non-negotiables that I want Reclaim to put in my calendar each day. They've also got a really interesting tasks feature. So essentially it's like a to-do list, but you can define tasks in different priorities. And then based on the priority and the deadline and how much time the task will take, it will automatically time block the task for you. And then if you manage to do the task, it goes off the list. But if you don't manage to do the task in that time, it will block it to another time based on like the AI algorithm thing. And then the other nice thing is that Reclaim can also add automatic flexible buffer times into your schedule in between stuff. So if, for example, I have a personal trainer session after a meeting, then it will automatically know that and it will figure out how much buffer time to put in my calendar. Reclaim also has a time tracking feature that shows you how you're spending your time. And personally, me and my team are big advocates for time tracking so that you can really have that awareness of, oh crap, this is where I'm spending my time and this is where I want to be spending my time. So if you're looking for a way to level up your time management game without spending more time fiddling around Google Calendar, then I would recommend checking out Reclaim. And very excitingly, you can get an extended 30-day trial of all the premium features when you sign up to the free plan with my link, reclaim.ai/Ali-Abdaal. That'll be linked down below as well. It's a cool tool. I'd recommend trying it out and seeing if it fits within your workflow. So thank you so much, Reclaim, for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to it. The second type of wealth, social wealth. All right, so here's some really interesting looking graphs from the American Time Use Survey, which is something that the US Bureau of Labor and Statistics has apparently been putting together since 2003. And so these graphs show on average how people spend their time as they age. This is the graph of time spent with family. Time spent with your parents and siblings peaks in childhood and declines sharply after you reach age 20. As you leave home and get caught up in your own life, you often fail to recognize that the time you have remaining with your family is so very limited. Cherish these relationships while you can. This is the graph of time spent with your children. Time spent with your children peaks in the early years of their lives and declines sharply thereafter. There's a devastatingly short window during which you are your child's entire world. Don't blink and miss it. Time spent with your friends peaks when you're 18 and then declines sharply to a low baseline. In your youth, you spend a lot of time with a lot of friends. As you enter adulthood, you spend a little bit of time with a few close friends. Embrace the breadth of friendships that comes with youth and prioritize the depth of friendships that should come with age. Time spent with your partner trends up until death. The person you choose to confront life's ups and downs with will have the largest impact on your happiness and fulfillment. Choose wisely. Time spent with coworkers is steady during the traditional prime working years, from age 20 to age 60, and declines sharply thereafter. Work will pull you away from your family and loved ones throughout your life. If you have the luxury of choice, make sure you choose work and coworkers that you find meaningful and important. Aim to have coworkers who create energy in your life. And then finally, time spent alone steadily increases throughout your life. When you're young, you tend to view time alone as a sign of not fitting in. You come to fear time alone, to fear boredom. But you need to learn to cherish it. Find happiness and joy in the time you have to yourself. There will be more of it as you get older. So here are 6 key lessons for life. Family time is finite. Cherish it. Children time is precious. Be present. Friend time is limited. Prioritize the real friends. Partner time is meaningful. Never settle. Coworker time is significant. Find energy. And alone time is abundant. Love yourself. Now, there's a cool exercise that he recommends in the book, which I'm actually in the process of doing, and that's called the relationship map. So the idea is that step 1, you list your core relationships in your life, and this will be in the range of 10 to 15, but maybe up to 25 core relationships, the core people you interact with. Then step 2 is you want to assess these core relationships. So for each of these core relationships, we are asking ourselves 2 questions. Firstly, is the relationship supportive, ambivalent, or demeaning? And secondly, is the relationship interaction frequent or infrequent? So a supportive relationship is one where there is mutual understanding of care, love, respect, and comfort. A demeaning relationship is characterized by the absence of those qualities and typically involves specific behavior that undermines one's self-worth. And then an ambivalent relationship has elements of both supportive and demeaning relationships at different times. It is inconsistent. And then step 3 is we want to map the core relationships on the relationship map in terms of how demeaning or supportive the relationship is, and then how rare or frequent that interaction is. Now, once you've mapped these out, you'll find that there is a relationship green zone. These are relationships that are supportive and that happen quite frequently. So you want to focus on cultivating those relationships. There is obviously a red zone where the relationship is very demeaning, but also you have to encounter it quite frequently. And then the goal would be to either try and make it less demeaning or to try and reduce the frequency of those encounters. There is actually a danger zone, and that danger zone is actually the ambivalent relationships, the ones that are inconsistent. That's, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, sometimes they're supportive, sometimes they're demeaning. And the danger zone is when we have those sorts of daily relationships. And actually those relationships, apparently, according to the research, cause more damage to our mental health than the fully demeaning relationships. Like if we're not sure how someone is going to respond to us, that can actually be more painful, more damaging than if we know that they're demeaning all the time. And then you have the opportunity zone. This is the area that I'm personally focused on because I have a lot of supportive relationships, but where my contact with those people is rare or not as frequent as I would like. And so then it's about finding actionable ways to get more contact with those sorts of people. Again, in the book, there are a bunch of other systems and tools that you can use to cultivate social wealth. And these are the 5 questions that you can use to assess your social wealth score. And again, if you would like to do this, feel free to pause the video and have a think for yourself. Or you can go on wealthscorequiz.com. I'll link it down below. That's a website that Sahil and his team have created where you can do the quiz and it will give you personalized responses based on your answers. The third type of wealth, mental wealth. All right, so again, on screen, these are the 5 questions for your mental wealth score. So feel free to pause the video now if you would like to do these. And again, if you decide to do these, you can add up your score and that should give you a score out of 20. But the one I want to specifically discuss in this video, because otherwise this video would be like 8 hours long, is question number 5, which is I have regular rituals that allow me to create space to think, reset, wrestle with questions, and recharge. And this idea of creating space, this is one of the things that I've historically neglected with my whole desire to be more productive and to be efficient. But I found that for me, the times where I have space, where I've got some free time to just journal or to just think, or I'm on a plane with no Wi-Fi, those are the times where I come up with my best ideas. And those are the ideas that make asymmetrical gains in my business and my life, rather than just sort of continuing and plugging along as usual. And I want to talk about 2 strategies here. The first one is one that I'm actively incorporating into my life as we speak, which is the think day. Now the story here, and I actually wrote about this in my own book, Feel Good Productivity. The most famous example of this is Bill Gates, who used to take these think weeks where he would spend a week just basically going off the grid, going to a cabin in the woods. He would have a private chef prepare all his meals, and he would be disconnected from the internet and from devices and stuff for that week. and he would just use that time to read and learn and reflect. And he cites a lot of the gains and like good ideas that Microsoft did. He attributes them to taking those like 1 week off the grid kind of periods, those think weeks. Now that's a cool concept, but most of us don't have the time or the space to be able to take a whole week off with a private chef in a cabin in the woods. But one thing that Sahil mentions in the book that I really like is the idea of a think day rather than a think week. If you're like me, you don't have an entire week to dedicate to thinking, but you can adapt something with a similar core vision. The think day was my adaptation. Pick one day each month to step back from all of your day-to-day professional demands. Seclude yourself mentally or physically, put up an out-of-office response, and shut off all your devices. The goal, spend the entire day reading, learning, journaling, and thinking. By doing this, you create the free time to zoom out, open your mind, and think creatively about the bigger picture. And here are 8 thinking prompts that Sahil has found particularly useful. 1. If I repeated my current typical day for 100 days, would my life be better or worse? 2. If people observed my actions for a week, what would they say my priorities are? 3. If I were the main character in a movie of my life, what would the audience be screaming at me to do right now? 4. Am I hunting antelopes, big important problems, or field mice, small urgent problems? 5. How can I do less but better? 6. What are my strongest beliefs? What would it take for me to change my mind on them? 7. What are a few things I know now that I wish I'd known 5 years ago? And 8. What actions did I engage in 5 years ago that I cringe at today? What actions am I engaged in today that I might cringe at in 5 years? Now, as you guys might know, I absolutely love collecting journaling prompts. It is one of my favorite things to do. And so linked down below is my life-changing journaling prompts list. It's completely free. We keep it updated. It's got these prompts in it and also loads of others. So if you are taking a think day, if you are taking some time to journal, then hopefully you can get some value out of these powerful questions that can help change the way that you think about stuff. It's completely free, link down below. And speaking of journaling, if you haven't yet tried journaling, Sahil has this 1-1-1 method that is a good starting point to get started with journaling.
I was creating this very high bar for what journaling was, and I was allowing optimal to get in the way of beneficial. So what I've done in response is I created something that I call the 1-1-1 method, which is at the end of every day, you sit down and you write 1 win from the day, something you felt good about, 1 point of tension or anxiety, something that is on your head that feels like a burden that you can put down onto the paper, and 1 point of gratitude, something that you felt grateful for, small or big, during the course of the day. It takes 3 to 5 minutes max, and you immediately get this feeling and sensation of calm and positivity to end your day.
The 4th type of wealth, physical wealth. Now these are the 5 questions for physical wealth. Again, feel free to pause the video right now and to do this for yourself. When I took the wealth score quiz myself, this was my lowest score. I actually did this a couple of months ago when Sahil came to Hong Kong to record this podcast interview that we did. And since then, my score has actually substantially increased because doing the quiz made me realize, oh crap, my physical wealth score is by far the lowest score. Let me actually do stuff about it. And so since then, gone back to the gym. I've started running every day. I've got my first squash lesson today. I had a Muay Thai lesson yesterday. Basically, I've just making my physical health a priority. Now, again, in the book, there's a bunch of different strategies that you can use to increase your physical wealth score. But there's one concept that I found really useful, which is the idea of the dimmer switch.
Your entire life exists on dimmer switches. All of these different areas, the 5 types of wealth, they all exist on a dimmer switch. And there's this tendency or this flawed belief that all of this stuff exists on and on off. So you can pursue financial wealth, but you have to turn off your family, you have to turn off relationships, your health, all of these other areas. And that's fundamentally incorrect.
So this dimmer switch mentality kind of made me realize that actually, you know what? Going to the gym for 15 minutes is better than not going at all. And like cooking 1 meal at home is better than ordering takeaway for all 3 meals. Like, I think when it comes to my physical wealth in particular, I have been letting perfect be the enemy of good.
You can identify those things, the high leverage actions that you can take that don't take a lot of time, but allow you to continue compounding on those things that aren't your primary focus. You can do the 5-minute thing that continues to build your relationships or continues to push your health in the right direction. Because with all of these areas, anything above 0 compounds positively.
This is actually a mantra that I've been telling myself quite a lot since this conversation with Sahil. Anything above 0 compounds positively. That means on a day where I'm in meetings all day or I'm doing a lot of work stuff and I haven't done anything for my physical health, I keep in mind that anything above 0 compounds positively, but 0 compounds negatively. Like physical wealth is one of those things that if you leave to its own devices and if nothing happens, it will actually deteriorate over time. So I keep that in mind and think, okay, cool. What is one small action I can take? Can I just go for a 10-minute run? Can I do a 15-minute gym session? Can I just do anything in this department, anything above 0 that would help compound and fight the entropy that happens, especially when you get to your 30s and above as it relates to physical health? And that brings us on to the fifth type of wealth, financial wealth. And these are the 5 questions as part of the wealth score quiz for financial wealth. Again, feel free to pause the video and try these out for yourself. But I want to focus on the first question here. And the big question here is, what is your definition of enough? Now, Sahil opens this with, in a short poem about his late friend Joseph Heller, a famous American author best known for his work of satirical genius, Catch-22, Kurt Vonnegut shared an anecdote that offers a powerful piece of Heller's wisdom. As the two enjoyed a party at the home of a billionaire, Vonnegut asked Heller, "Joe, how does it make you feel to know that our host only yesterday may have made more money than your novel Catch-22 has earned in its entire history?" Heller replied, "I've got something he can never have, the knowledge that I've got enough." I've personally been grappling with this question, like a lot of us do, of what is enough, ever since I achieved my goal of financial freedom, financial independence. I was able to quit the day job, etc., be able to do what I love. Now it's a case of like genuinely, what does enough actually look like? And there is a fun story that Sahil writes about in the book. You might be familiar with the story. It is the parable of the Mexican fisherman. I am very familiar with the story, but I'm going to reread it out anyway because I think this is an important lesson worth revisiting. A wealthy investment banker goes on vacation to a tropical fishing village. As he walks along the docks one afternoon, he comes upon a small, run-down fishing boat with several large fish on its deck. "How long did it take you to catch those fish?" he asks. The fisherman looks up from his work and smiles at his new visitor. "Only a little while." The investment banker is taken aback by the response. He likes the fisherman and wants to help. "Why don't you fish for longer so you can catch more fish?" The fisherman shrugs and explains to his new friend that he has all he needs. "Each day, I sleep late, fish a little, and spend some time with my children and beautiful wife. In the evening, I go into town, drink wine, play the guitar, and sing and laugh with my friends." The investment banker is puzzled. He wants to help his new friend, who, in his opinion, is clearly confused. So he lays out a plan for the fisherman. First, you spend more time fishing so you can catch and sell more fish. You use the proceeds to buy a bigger boat, which allows you to catch and sell even more fish. Then you buy a fleet of boats. You hire a team, vertically integrate. As the CEO of a large, growing enterprise, you could move to the big city. You would take your company public and make millions. The fisherman looks confused, but smiles. "And then what?" he asks. The investment banker laughs at the silly question. "Well, then you could retire to a quiet town. You could sleep late, fish a little, and spend some time with your children and beautiful wife. And in the evenings, you could go into town, drink wine, play the guitar, and sing and laugh with your friends." I love this story. Absolutely love this story. It's great. This is Sahil's interpretation. The popular interpretation of this parable is that the investment banker is wrong and the fisherman is right. My own interpretation is that this story isn't about the fisherman being right and the banker being wrong. It's about identifying what success and purpose look like to you and building a life that meets that definition. It's about defining your enough life and then working to embrace it. Maybe both the fisherman and the banker are happy with their choices and priorities. I'll let them decide, and the same goes for you. Now, there is apparently a word in Swedish called lagom, which means just the right amount. And this thing around defining what our enough life is, defining what our lagom life actually looks like, helps us overcome something called the arrival fallacy.
The arrival fallacy is the name for that exact phenomenon, that we think that we are going to feel like we've arrived when we get to whatever that thing is. And ultimately what actually happens is you get there and your sights immediately reset to whatever the next thing is. You get this kind of momentary feeling of this like dopamine-induced euphoria, and then you just reset to this feeling of, is that it? Is this all it is? What's the next thing? It's never enough.
There's also a wonderful book by a chap called Andrew Wilkinson, who used to be a barista and is now a billionaire. And the title of that book is Never Enough, From Barista to Billionaire, which also talks about this concept that, like, for people who are trying to build financial wealth, it's so hard to overcome the temptation to just keep on seeking more and more and more. This is something that I'm still trying to grapple with, trying to figure out how much do I want to grow the business? How much do I want to prioritize my life? How much do I, how do I balance all the things? Knowing that, I could make more millions by focusing on the business, but I already have enough. But there's this always this trade-off between, I seem to sort of flip-flop between these two sides of the pendulum, where at certain moments in time, I'm like, yep, I've got enough, life's good. And at other moments of time, I'm like, no, but I want more. I want to, whatever.
Probably the single most powerful exercise anyone can do here is to write the journaling prompt at the top of your page. What does my enough life look like? And then sit down and actually create a clear visual in your mind of what you have, where you are, who you're with, what you're doing, how you feel, what you're working on, what you're spending time on. Like, really create a visual of that life. If you were to close your eyes and truly just imagine that you're waking up in the morning and you feel that you have enough.
For me, the thing that I get to after doing this exercise is that I'm already living my enough life. And yes, it's fine to try and grow the business for the sake of the fun, the enjoyment of playing the video game. Sometimes I try and connect that to the impact that, we can have by, I don't know, making more videos, writing more books, making more software. But if I'm being honest, like for the most part, the reason I continue to work is because I find it quite fun and fulfilling. And I just have to try and remind myself that like, if it's a choice between making more money and doing what I love, I should pick doing what I love rather than trying to make more money. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video and you got to this point, you would definitely love reading the book. You should definitely check it out. And if you're interested in more on the whole financial wealth front, I have a video here, which is my honest advice to someone who wants financial freedom, where I talk a friend through his struggles with like how to become financially free. So thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.